Health Secretary Sajid Javid there, speaking to Isabella Neyman on Breakfast earlier. Now, 5 years ago, the government implemented a two-child benefit policy, which excludes all but the first two children from all available benefits. Since then, the fertility rate for third and subsequent children born to poorer families has barely fallen.
Yes, indeed, obviously. The report commissioned by the Nuffield Trust has instead plunged millions into further poverty. So the UK's birth rate, apparently, has been in a steady decline since the 1960s. And according to world indexes, we come in at around 160. Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who's going to talk to us about this. What's the main takeaway here, Tom?
Well, the takeaway is that it looks like the two-child limit on benefit payments hasn't really done what it was supposed to do. Now, it's understandable that a lot of people were worried about incentives in the benefit system, where people may want to have more children, not for the sake of having children, but for the sake of having more cash. That seems like an amoral incentive to foster. And yet, it doesn't seem like that was particularly true, because the number of children being had by people on benefits has barely shifted, despite benefit expansion being ended for those who have more than two children. So really, it looks like this policy may well have not done what it said on the tin. And more than that, the big issue that we're facing, not just in the UK, but in the Western world in general, is this drop in fertility, people not having children. Actually, to be honest, more people of higher incomes having fewer children than people of lower incomes, which is creating a very worrying situation for years down the line, because, of course, it's the whole social infrastructure, the whole pension fund, all of the sort of spending on the NHS that is tilted massively towards those in end-of-life care. That's funded by people who are paying tax now. If there are many more older people retired than young people paying tax, that system may start to collapse.
Yeah, and it's such a simple point, but it's one that, you know, when these people who say we're overpopulated, we need to reduce the population, I mean, that's all for the birds, isn't it? We actually need more children. But I'm uncomfortable with this whole idea of, you know, cutting benefits to stop sort of poorer people having children, because that's what it can be seen as. It's almost as if, you know, a lot of people don't consider that when it comes to deciding that they're going to have children or not. Are families now who are struggling, who have many children, who aren't entitled to these benefits, I mean, can they expect any support from the government, who recognise this hasn't really worked out how they anticipated?
Well, this is the very early stages, of course. This is one report saying that actually, looking at all of the inputs and outputs, it doesn't seem to have done what it was aiming to do. I don't think that we can expect a rapid government response to this, but potentially I think this signals a direction of travel. There will be an increasing chorus from people on all sides of the House of Commons, to be frank, to say that potentially the time to end the limit on those benefits may well be coming. I know that a number of Conservative MPs are worried about the state of natalism in this country, although, as I say, there does seem to be a more particular concern and potentially a lower birth rate amongst people who have higher incomes and, frankly, higher education.
Yeah.
OK, I mean, the idea that someone might be about to have unprotected sex with someone and then consider the benefit scheme immediately before that, I find absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I think we're simply not happening, is it?
I would say, though, as controversial as it is, it has been exploited by some people. The idea that it never happens is not true. I think there are people who exploit the benefit system.
I mean, the people who might not have unprotected sex as a result of the fact that they think, well, we're not going to get our third kid paid for. That ain't happening.
You do see these kind of tabloid stories sometimes of the single mother who decided to have 12 children because it earned her X amount of money.
But
those seem to be isolated cases and not really rife in the system in general.
But we're still paying for them, though, aren't we? Regardless, surely. Like, I know that we might not be paying in this specific sense, but if someone has 6 kids, right? Just because we don't end up giving this specific benefit to anyone, we're still paying for that.
Oh, certainly. The infrastructure,
if you're on benefit,
the school places, everything that is required in sort of that social infrastructure in the country, of course, that is still paid for. And it's concerning because, actually, to some extent, it may be a false economy. If you stop giving one particular benefit, but then someone has to, for example, do childcare because they can't afford childcare, comes out of work, stops paying tax, potentially children go with malnutrition because they can't be fed, and then that creates a whole number of problems for the NHS. There are some real problems there and false economies potentially in this policy. Certainly something that needs to be explored in much more depth.